that as well. But I also did hear somebody say, well, we can't do things without a river because, you know, it floods too often, it does all these sorts of things. I was reminded most of the fact that people came to Chattanooga once to New Haven, Connecticut, to study how we had turned our city around. And after 3 days, they left and said, well, we just don't see how we can do these things because we don't have a Lyndhurst Foundation. And the head of our downtown development organization said, tell you what, give us Yale, we'll get you Lyndhurst. That's like, are you lying? A $5 billion endowment. Lyndhurst, that's a $100 billion endowment. And we don't have any kind of higher education institution for that. It becomes easy when you are in distress to fail to appreciate your own extraordinary resources and how you can capitalize upon them for the future. So we invested in quality of life because we knew that in the future, human capital would matter more than natural resources. Future economies were going to be built off of brains. People with brains could have choices about where they live, and you had to offer something real and attractive to people who had those choices. And it takes years to transform the quality of a community so that the quality of life is actually has that magnetic appeal. So another lesson is you can't do this overnight. And you need some entity that has swallowed you with a sense of urgency. You've got to have focus, patient, but consistent. And I happily work for an institution that can afford to take the long view about Chattanooga's future. For instance, we now have an 8-mile river walk that is built out to world-class standards. It's a fabulous public space. It is the most popular and highly used public space in our community. It's used by people of all walks of life. They now love our river. They used to think it was our toilet. It was just a place where you flushed things down. You couldn't even see the river from any place. You know, the bridges were built up so that you would have to get out of your car to look over to see the river. There was no public access to it, virtually no way to get down to the river. And now this river walk gives you beautiful visual as well as physical access to the river. And we built the first 3/4 of a mile of it. Lyndhurst Foundation put up 1/5 of the money, and then we made a full faith pledge to the city and county and our downtown development agency. We will put up 1/5 of the money for building this virtually indefinite commitment. As you can raise money from other sources, you can always count on having $1 for every $4 that you can get. And it took us 20 years to do it. But we had to respect the fact that the county government didn't necessarily have $1 million just lying around. But maybe next year when the new transportation bill gets passed, they can now bring $1 million in, and once they've gotten the federal, they've got to come up with a local match, and then you've got $2 million, and the city involved in this, and voila, you've got about $5 million, and you can get to work on another major section of the Riverwalk. You could never stop once you got into the game because the public loved it so much. That even though we are a conservative, low tax or preferably no tax community, they insisted that we have a river walk and that it be a celebration of something that we had once ignored and now found to be. And it's cleaner today in part because people take care of it and they lobby TPA to quit doing certain things that are not so nice to the river. So when people love something, they seek to make it better. And the most important change that has come in our city is that people of all walks of life, I would say, even if they haven't directly benefited from the changes, they would say, I live in a great city. I'm proud of the city I live in. Even if their lives are hard, they believe they're in a better place than they once were. And that is an improvement in their quality of life, even if it doesn't affect immediately their pocketbook. They have greater expectations for the future because they see that their city is on the move. Since I've been here, I have listened to people, and I have looked at the community. I have only a superficial reading of Fort Wayne. I can sense that it is a place that has suffered from loss of things that once were critical to its welfare. I can sense that it's a place that has emptied out in some ways. That's one of the disadvantages of living on the prairies. I mean, you can just go as far as you can go, and it's you can sprawl very easily. And so there's a lot of empty land near downtown, where neighborhoods have clearly evaporated. And I know that there are people who think that that's not a good thing because they've told me so. They're not so sure exactly what to do about it, but they think that the city is disadvantaged by a continuing outmigration further and further suburban reaches. Not to blame anybody who chooses that. What we've done in Chattanooga is say that's always the dominant trend. We need to offer incentives for a counter trend so that it is a viable alternative for someone who wants to live closer into town. So downtown and urban neighborhoods became really important parts of Chattanooga's Lyndhurst Foundation's mission, along with public education and arts and cultural life in the city. I want to kind of wrap up this piece of it by saying not everybody here, perhaps, even would say that they understand why downtown or the core urban area of the city is all that important. There are people who probably think that it is essentially an antiquated place. It just doesn't serve contemporary needs. The malls are where you go to shop. You can get great houses for low per foot costs out in leafy green suburban areas. I don't get it why downtown matters, or why these urban neighborhoods matter, because people have voted to leave. Downtown will never function in the future the way it has in the past. Successful cities will figure out what the new function of downtown is, in part because, and you may disagree with this, but I firmly believe this, cities are in some ways known by a certain signature. And for most places, for better or worse, it is your downtown. It is the living room of your city. There are all these bedrooms, but it is the living room. It is the common neighborhood of us all. And if you neglect it, it sends a powerful message to everyone who passes through that you don't care about your living room, which probably means you've lost a sense of care in general. You will never be featured as a great city because of a suburban office park. I promise you. It doesn't matter how good it is. Will not make the front page of any magazine or get any significant article about your fabulous